Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ODP's series on our Workshop Wednesdays, where we go over various topics relating to camping, backpacking, doing outdoor adventures. Tonight, we will be talking about stoves and stuff. I'm Becky.
I'm Cassidy.
And let's get started.
So we have a presentation for you. So we're going to do a screen share. All right, camping stoves, do's, don'ts, and stuff. Introductions. I'm Cassidy, she, her. I'm from Boring, Oregon, which is a little outside Portland, more towards Mount Hood, and I'm currently living on campus. As for marshmallows, I like to light my first one on fire because it's just fun. And then when I have more patience, I'll slow toast the second one.
I'm Becky. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Arizona, but I've been in Oregon for the past little while. Here at the ODP right now, living in Portland. For marshmallows, our little fun question, I aspire to the slow toast with like nice golden brown, soft, gooey center, but I inevitably end up setting it on fire before I get to that point. So like I appreciate a good on fire marshmallow. Like someday I'll get to like that perfect golden brown toastiness.
Someday. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today, a little bit of history, some safety around cooking stoves, how to use them, pros and cons, as well as some other tips. So why bother with a camping stove? Well, campfires have a lot of risks. They could be hard to start, complicated by weather. It can be hard to find fuel depending on where you're camping. It takes time to get hot coals, which we experience with the marshmallow dilemma. You have to be patient. Sometimes that's not fun. Greater risks and impacts on the environment, increased wildfire risk, which we saw a lot over the past summer. And then fire bans can prevent you from starting fires like that. But, you know, they also have good things. They're fun. They're warm. There's like a nice smoky smell and flavor. Do you have anything to add, Becky?
Yeah, I would just say, especially if you're going out in the summer, don't rely on a campfire because there will most likely be a fire ban out in the Pacific Northwest at a lot of campsites. So definitely do your research before going out if you really, really want to have a campfire or cook over a campfire.
Absolutely. All right, so some fuel types. You have liquid and canister, which we'll be talking about today, and then alcohol, wood, and solid fuel. So just some universal safety. Heat can easily lead to injury and environmental damage no matter what you're working with. And more specifically with a stove, it's important to stay in an active position. We'll be demonstrating this later when we go up and light some stoves, but just make sure you're kneeling and squatting, not laying down, just because that takes more time for you to get up in case there is an emergency. You always want to make sure someone is attending the stove all the time, that it's lit, no going off in groups or just leaving it to kind of burn on its own. Sort of in the same vein, you want to make sure you clear debris or any flammable material from around your cooking area, keeping it out of the walkway of others so no one kicks it over or accidentally steps on it. And then something else we'll also demonstrate later is that you don't want to step or reach over the flames.
So now we're going to go on a little bit of an adventure. We can't set our stoves on fire in this room, but we can go on and head to the back and show you how it's done. Woo. So we're going to go on an adventure and we'll take you along with us.
We'll be right back.
Okay. So we've had some already with accidentally being on mute while we're presenting, but I think we're good now. So here is where we're gonna set up our stoves and show you how it is done. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen to get our presentation going again. See, where were we? Here. All right, where would you like to present from?
Right here. So I'm going to be talking about the Whisper Light. It's a classic for over 20 years. A lot of people use it and are familiar with it. It uses liquid fuel, white gas. You can see the dimensions are up, and it doesn't weigh very much. So it's kind of, oh no, not including the fuel. Yeah, okay, so the fuel's going to add a little bit of weight to it. Time to boil a liter of water, about 7 minutes. And then for a price, it's about $100 new at REI. You can find it maybe cheaper elsewhere, but the newer model, it enables use of fuel canisters, which Becky will show you. That price is a little bit higher at $140.
All right, stop sharing that. And now we're gonna show you how to actually use these things.
Yay. Okay, so they come in a little bag. Becky, come in a little bag, and you're gonna open it up, and you're gonna find some parts. Your little windshield, this piece, the stove itself, a lighter, and then this piece to put on the ground. So you want to start putting it on the ground, making sure it's nice and flat. It's going to help keep the heat and just make a nice little spot for your stove. Here is the stove itself. There we go. You're going to start by folding the legs out. There are these nice little notches you can see that it fits into. Sweet, there we go. All set up. You're gonna put it down. And then like we mentioned before, here is the fuel we're gonna be using. And then already I've started more of an active stance where I'm kind of crouched and I can get up really quick compared to like if I was sitting and something went wrong, I'd have to get up a little slower. So, all right, here we go. First step is you're gonna wanna open this. Yeah, you wanna push it down.
Yeah, you open it like it's a medicine bottle where you have to push it down and twist.
There we go. And then, what's this piece called?
That is called the fuel pump.
Fuel pump. Nice. So yeah, you're gonna want to stick it in just like that.
Yeah.
And then same thing as taking off the lid is you want to make sure, screw it back on. Okay. And then it has, let me see. But it has this red pump right here. So what you want to do is you want to pump that up 30 to 50 times or until the canister kind of starts to get cold.
So we've had someone just join us here. So the letter A completed about 6 times, it looks like.
Hey, if you want to unmute yourself and introduce, we'd love to say hi.
Yeah.
Or not, that's okay.
So just to recap, we're now showing how to use the Whisper Light stove. What we're doing right now is pumping the fuel bottle, and this increases the pressure. And you want to pump it about 30 to 50 times or until you feel a fair amount of pressure. And while you do this, you might actually feel the fuel bottle get colder as the pressure increases. There's some fancy physics stuff behind that, but I couldn't explain to you exactly why.
It's a stove workshop, not a physics workshop. All right, so we're getting there. It's starting to resist a little bit more, so I'm gonna do like 10 more. Okay, that should be good, right?
Looks good.
Looks the same. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach it to the stove. So on the fuel pump, it has this piece right here. That's where you're gonna plug it in, and then nice and easy on the stove. Yeah, let's do it. So it takes a bit of force to get it in there because you want it to be all the way flush with the cable.
Yeah, you'll push it in and it'll stop moving, and then you're gonna want to plug it in just a little bit more so it's totally flat against the fuel bottle.
Wow,
Perfect.
see, it's nice and close. And then this safety latch, you're gonna move around.
Flip it over.
Yeah, and then it like snaps neatly into place. All right, and so this is when we get into the fun part. With the Whisper Light stoves, you have to prime them. You can't just turn the gas on and light it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let a little bit of the gas in just until it starts to barely fill up this cup down here. And then what we're gonna do is light it and let it burn. So just like we said in the video, a nice active stance. And then when I am lighting it, I'm gonna light it from here. I'm not gonna try and reach across. I'm not gonna like come from this side. No, you're gonna just kind of like reach, but not too far. Okay, so we're gonna start by opening this. No, yes.
Righty tighty, lefty loosey.
And then I'm just watching for fuel to start pooling in this little cup.
Yeah, when you open it far enough, it'll pool out as a liquid. I hear it. There you go. And so it's probably fairly difficult to see on the video, but in the cup that Cassidy's pointing at right now, there's a little puddle of liquid fuel.
All right. So, no.
There you go.
Okay, lighting it. This is my least favorite part. We're just lighting a lighter right now.
You had it.
Had it.
There you go.
There we go. And then we're light.
Cassidy's a bit new to this particular stove.
Yes.
So she has it lit the fuel at the bottom of the cup, and you're going to see it start to flame up a little bit. And what we're doing right now is called priming. It's basically preheating the stove, because if we just turned on the gas and tried to light it, it would not work. So I'm not sure how well you can see on the video, but there it goes. It's starting to flame up a little bit. Not as vigorously as it normally does, but there it goes. Yeah, so we're basically preheating the stove right now. Let's see, and this is closed a little bit. Yep. All right, this is a rather timid burn. Normally it'll create a flame that goes, oh, there we go. Yeah, that's more of what it typically looks like. And we're gonna watch this, and once the flame flares up and then dies down, as soon as it's dead, we're gonna turn the gas back on and relight the stove. There we go. That had a bit of a lazy start, but it's getting there now. Yeah, so this can take a couple minutes. If you are extremely talented and have a good sense of timing, you can, instead of waiting for it to go out completely, turn the stove back on right before it goes out, and then you won't have to relight it again. So it is dying down now. So Cassidy is gonna get ready to turn on the fuel again and light it. So there, all right, there it goes. So she's gonna turn back the fuel. There you go. And now she's gonna light it at the top of the stove.
Is it?
Yep. Perfect. So you can see, we have, I don't know if you can see, but there is a very light blue flame around the rim of it. There's no yellow flames bursting out. And that's exactly what we want. We want just a light rim of blue flames around the perimeter of the stove. And now this is good to go until you turn it off. Keep in mind that if you prime the stove and the flame goes out and you wait too long to turn the gas on and relight the stove, you might have to reprime it. But this is a perfect cooking fire, nice and hot and perfect size for a pan. When you're done cooking, you can just turn off the gas and make sure you let it sit for a couple of minutes before you try putting it away because it will be hot.
And then just one last piece we want to go over. It comes with a little windshield. Exactly what it sounds like. Blocks the wind from your fire, keeps the heat in. As you can see, it just kind of sets up around it. So that's everything for the Whisper Light. And then yeah, just like how we turned on the gas, we are going to turn it off with this little valve.
Yeah. And so you'll turn off the gas, and then over a couple seconds, the flame will get lower and lower, and eventually it'll just turn off as all the gas that's in the fuel hose gets pumped out. So that is the Whisper Light. Let's see, chat. Oh, Ian said that he was the one who joined us.
Oh.
Hi, Ian. So let's go back to our PowerPoint really quick, and we'll go over a couple little things that you should know about the Whisper Light. Let me share my screen again. All right.
Good and the bad. So here's some pros of the Whisper Light. It's take apartable. Every piece can be removed and replaced. So that's nice. If one thing goes bad, you don't have to rebuy a whole system. Reusable fuel bottles.
Yeah, when this bottle gets empty, you can just buy a canister of white fuel and fill it right back up.
It's sturdy and stable. As you can see, or you saw in the video before, the legs are nice and like a tripod, so it's not wobbly. And you could, like Becky said, easily put a pan on there. Cheap and light for a liquid fuel stove. I think anyone who's ever backpacked, it's important that things are light. And we're college students, so cheap things are awesome.
Yeah, so liquid fuel stoves in general are more heavy than other types. But for this type of stove, it's pretty light and affordable.
And easy to use once you learn how. This is not kidding. Becky taught me how to use this a few days ago, and I think it went pretty successful.
Yeah, it did. You did great.
So some of the cons, little temperature control. As you can see, there's no adjustable or in multiple settings. It's all just gas or no gas. And it requires priming. So that first little step, I mean, it took a couple minutes. When you're hungry, that's gonna feel like a lot longer. Prone to clogs. Yeah, you have this piece right there. Get some clogs. Requires expertise. Yes.
Yeah, so if I just handed you the stove and didn't teach you anything about it, you would not be able to figure out how to use it. So it's easy to learn once you know how, but it's not extremely intuitive.
Yeah. And then heavy compared to other stove types. So light for a liquid, but there are lighter options. And then beware of fireballs. Yes. Becky, do you want to talk about this one?
So Whisper Lights are really nice stoves, but they can tend to have problems in its areas. It's got a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts. And I think the more parts you have, the more prone you are to having something break. So Whisper Lights are great. And when they work extremely well, but they can throw little things at you that you don't expect. Like the last Whisper Light I primed it and I turned it on, and it sent up like a big column of flame that took a couple seconds to figure out and go down. I had to turn down the gas. So just be prepared for anything when you use a Whisper Light. They're good stoves. You just got to make sure you know how to use it and practice it before you're out in the field. All right, so we are going into our second stove now. This is the SPR Pocket Rocket, and another SPR stove. call this a little stove that could. Here it is. If you compare it to the Whisper Light, it's a lot smaller and a lot lighter. And this is a canister style stove, so it uses a different kind of fuel. It uses isobutane propane. As I said, it's a lot smaller than the Whisper Light. It's a lot lighter as well. And it takes less time to boil a liter of water as well. It gets hotter faster. I couldn't find it at REI. They're all sold out, so I can't give you that basic retail price. But in general, they're about $45 to $70. And there's another model, the Pocket Rocket 2, that came out that is more expensive, but it's also smaller and lighter than the original. So if you're looking around for a Pocket Rocket, that might be something to consider. And now I'm going to show you how to light this. So let me stop screen sharing and just turn on our video. All right, so we've got our Whisper Light in the background, but here's the Pocket Rocket. And this is many times easier to use than the Whisper Light. All you have to do to use the stove, I have my fuel. I can screw this stove on right to the top. You probably won't be able to hear it, but as I screw it on, there will come a point where it makes a little hissing noise. And that's when I broken the seal on the fuel, and it's now able to enter the stove itself. I'm gonna pull out these little prongs. So it's another tripod. And then here is my gas control. So all I have to do, where's the lighter? Gotta get a lighter. All right, so all I have to do to use the stove, no priming. I'm going to turn on the gas. Let me pull it back from my computer a little bit. Make sure I'm in an active position, so kneeling, so if something bad happens, I can easily jump back. I'm gonna turn on the fuel with lefty-loosey. I hear it pumping out. And that is it. I'll try and show it a little more closely, but that is all that I have to do for this stove. And it's got a flame control, so if I want more power, I just open the gas a little more, and it starts pumping out hotter. And then I can make it smaller, larger, smaller, larger, smaller. It's a very easy stove to use. When I'm done with it, all I'm gonna do is just turn off the gas, instantly done, easy peasy. It's a very convenient stove. So that took a bit less time to show than the Whisper Light. So let's go back to our slideshow and I'll give you some pros and cons about that. Have to like keep track of screen share and then we go back and, all right.
Unmute your mic.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. So let's go into some details about the Pocket Rocket. Good and the bad. Pros, it is very small and very light, especially compared to a liquid fuel stove like the Whisper Light that we showed before. It's, as I just showed, easy to use, no need to prime. You don't have to learn how to prime. Just within 10 seconds of opening the case, I have a flame going. And I showed it does have temperature control, something that the Whisper Light does lack. So I can actually simmer stuff and gently saute stuff, whereas the Whisper Light will just kind of blast everything that's in its pot with intense direct heat. There's less moving parts on this. There's a smaller, it's got less parts, which gives less chance for things to break. Some cons of this is that these fuel canisters are not reusable. Every time you use up one of these, you gotta throw it away or recycle it in some way to a recycling facility, which is a major con in my book. So that's the thing I like least about the Pocket Rocket, honestly. It's a lot less stable than the Whisper Light because it's smaller and lighter. If you kick this, it's probably just gonna fall over. Whereas with the Whisper Light, it's kind of anchored to the ground by the fuel bottle. So you've got less of a chance to kick it over. Another thing is this pot support is a lot narrower than other stoves. So if you put a pot on top of it, it might wiggle around a bit just because this support is more narrow and doesn't have as much surface area. And compared to other stoves of this type, it's cheaper than liquid fuel stoves, but it's still pretty expensive compared to other canister style stoves. And this is relevant on the Pocket Rocket 2. That one has an automatic igniter, so you don't even need a lighter. You can just turn it on and it will light. But I've heard reports that that igniter is not very powerful and a bit less reliable than other igniters. All right, so do we want to go back up to the front and do the rest of the slideshow?
Yeah.
All right, so we will join you back up front in just a minute to conclude our slideshow. I'm gonna not screen share this time. Or I mean, not have this.
You're gonna mute it.
Hello and welcome back. There we go. Nice. Go back to our slideshow. Let's get back to where we were. All right, so I'm going to go over some of the other stoves that you. Oh, whoops. I got screen share first. God, there's so many things to remember with these. There we go. So I'm going to go over some other stoves that you might encounter and might want to consider. The first is the MSR Dragonfly. This is like a fancier whisper light with a couple more fancy tools. If you can use a whisper light, you've got the priming process down, you can use a Dragonfly. You can see if you look at this picture of the stove that I have on screen that there's a little dial pointing out, and that is a temperature control, something that is completely lacking with the whisper light. So that is a really fun thing to have. That does make it more expensive and more heavy than a whisper light. Also, I wouldn't say if this is a good or a bad, but this thing is loud as heck. It literally, like, it sounds like a dragon when you turn it on. It roars quite powerfully. So not really a good or a bad, just a thing about it. If you use it, you don't want to be surprised by that because it is very loud. Another stove that you see commonly that people have is called the jet boil. There's a couple different models. These, as you might be able to tell from the name, are good for boiling water and not much else. It's perfect if you have a meal plan where the only thing you need is boiling hot water. Like if you're just rehydrating dehydrated food, you don't need anything more than that, which makes this extremely convenient because it boils water fast, it does it well, it's all you need. You can see it's a canister style stove. There are other accessories to do cooking, like pots, but you can only buy them specifically for the jet boil. You can't just use any pot and be able to use a jet boil, which is a bit disappointing. Again, if all you need is hot boiling water, then this will work fine. If you want to get a little fancier, maybe this shouldn't be your first choice of stove. And some more, I mentioned at the beginning, there's many different fuel types. So here's a couple of other stoves. The The Olicamp Micro, you can see, is up on the top left. It is a canister style stove, very similar to the Pocket Rocket, except it is smaller and lighter. So if you're really into ultralight, where you're just trying to shave off as many ounces, half ounces as you can, this could be a good option. It makes a small concentrated flame, so it's not especially powerful. And they have sacrificed a bit of the sturdiness and robustness of other stoves to get it that small and that light. So it's cheap, it's good, but it's not the most sturdy. So if you have this, you might have to be a little gentle around it. On the right side of the screen, I included a solid fuel stove. This is one of the oldest kinds of stoves that have been used in like backpacking and expeditions. Ultra light. This is so small and so light, and you can tell that because you look at it, and all it is a metal frame for you to put your fuel cube in. So you set up this metal frame, set in your fuel cube, which is a mix of some sort of wax, light it on fire, and there you go. It doesn't even use gas. So these are the most ultralight that you can get. And I've heard that they're really good. I've never used them before. You can also perhaps tell this by looking at the design, but it's not going to be the most weatherproof. If you have wind blowing, there's nothing protecting that fuel cube from the outside elements. So maybe invest in a windscreen or some other reflective surface that'll help keep the heat in and help keep the wind out. The last stove I've included is the alcohol burner stove. This is extremely affordable. This one specifically is $20. It uses all kinds of alcohol-based fuels. You could even pour some kinds of like straight up drinking alcohol into it, although it's not recommended, and it'll be less efficient than other kinds of alcohol fuels. Nonetheless, it's very easy to find fuel for this thing. And it is pretty weatherproof. The damp won't bother it. It'll still light totally fine. It is not extremely powerful, so it won't get super hot and will probably take a bit longer to get water boiling. But it is very cheap, very obtainable. And all these kinds of stoves, besides the canister stoves and the liquid fuel stoves, such as the Whisper Light and the Pocket Rocket, are going to be a bit cheaper. So the ones that aren't canister or liquid fuel will be cheaper than these other kinds. Because you can see these are a bit more simpler in construction and don't need gas canisters, which could be a plus. And I'd recommend continuing to do your own research. This is just a tiny smattering of the stoves that are available. So if you like the sound of a solid fuel stove, go out and look for it. There's many different kinds. The SPIT is just a sample that I pulled, but there's so much out there, and I'd really encourage you to, if you're interested in any of these, doing a bit of research and finding maybe some more options that are out there. Yeah, so thank you for tuning in. Cassidy and I really appreciate it, and thank you for sticking through. If we had any rough spots or some weird camera angles going on. Yeah, and we hope that y'all have a great school term and are doing all right out there.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
Are you with the green arrow